Okay, again, welcome to the virtual open house for Columbia College Chicago. Today's open house is about the European Devised Performance Practice MFA program and the Devised Performance Practice MA program. Today is Thursday, it's November 19th, and it's 2 o'clock Chicago time. I'm one of your presenters. I'm David Martz. I'm an Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions. And Michael, let's introduce yourself again.
I am still Michael Brown, an associate professor and director of the Devised Performance Programs, MA and MFA.
Nothing's changed in the last 2 minutes.
That's right.
Before we really launch into the curriculum or in the program specific information, which I'm going to let Michael do, I'm going to quickly take a moment to take a step back and talk about the school as a whole. So Columbia College Chicago, for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with it, we are an arts and media school located in Chicago, Illinois. The mission of Columbia is to educate students who will communicate creatively and shape the public's perceptions of issues and events, and who will author the culture of their times. And I think that's really reflective in the types of the types of programs that we offer, both grad and undergrad, and through the curriculum. With 50% of our student population identifying as a person of color, Columbia students really do reflect the economic, racial, cultural, educational diversity of contemporary America. We're located in the heart of downtown Chicago's Cultural Mile, specifically in a neighborhood called the South Loop, and I'll show you a little bit more of that on the next slide. There are roughly 7,000 students at Columbia, the majority of which are undergraduate students. And then more specifically, the School of Graduate Studies has around 175 to 225 graduate students in any given year. So our programs are really designed at the graduate level for small cohort sizes that really allow the students to have ample attention from the faculty. And then just to further contextualize where we're at in the city, this is a nice picture of world famous Buckingham Fountain that, you know, if you've ever driven down Lakeshore Drive, you definitely will have noticed. There's a picture of formerly the Sears Tower, now called Willis Tower. And then if you can magically follow my mouse right over here, this is essentially where all of campus is. So over here on the map, that really plays it out. Here's Lake Michigan, there's Buckingham Fountain, as I mentioned. There's Wrigley Field, or not Wrigley Field, Field Museum, the Shedd Aquarium, et cetera. And then all of these dots, these colored dots right here, this sort of two block east and west, 1 mile north and south rectangle is where the majority of our campus buildings are. And all these purple dots, by the way, too, are CTA or public transportation lines. So as you can see, it's very easily accessible through any area in the city. Okay, I think the next couple slides are all about the curriculum. So I'm gonna let Michael take it over from here.
Great. So just a quick overview of the curriculum, and then we can get more into the weeds as we go and in response to your questions. As most of you are aware, we have two programs, the MA and the MFA. Both focus on performance and performance making. The primary difference between them being that the MA is a one-year program. It is 30 credit hours completed in Chicago, all of that with an option to take the 10-day London immersion trip, which happens in January of non-COVID years. And then the MFA is a two-year program. The first year taking place in Chicago, comprising 27 credit hours. The second year taking place in Berlin, as most of you know. That is a 24 credit hour year in Berlin. It's a three-term year. The students start in late September, finish in mid-December, start again in early January. That term ends in April, and then there's a third term that begins in late April and goes through mid-June. So that second year actually goes up through mid-June in Berlin. It is possible to do the MA as a part-time student. So I said it's a one-year, 30 credit program. We have someone doing it right now who's turning that into a 1.5-year program because that just made sense for her in terms of her time and her funding, available funding from her home country of Taiwan. So she's stretching that out into next fall as she completes that program. So it's possible, and we'll work with people to make that fit into their lives and their timescales. There is a fall start only for both programs because the classes in both programs follow a pretty lockstep pattern. There are a couple of electives for each group, but for the most part, the classes are a prescribed list of classes and an order of classes for both programs. We do start only in the fall. And there's finally an indication of our class size. Our total class group has been somewhere between 7 and 12 for the 5 years that we've been in existence. So that tends to be around where we land. We can go up to slightly higher than 12, but we've been very happy with that number. It's been a great size of the cohort for people to work with, but also gives, as David said, everyone a chance to have individual mentoring as they create their own projects, and a lot of individual attention. So like I said, we can go into more detail as we go, but that gives you an overview. Yes. Oh, good. Thank you for the next slide. Now I can continue. Both of the programs, just to go a little more in depth, the curriculum is based on the pedagogy, the teaching that was developed by Jacques Lecoq, who's a very famous central figure in European physical theater training, but theater training full stop, I would say, performance training. It tends to be described as physical. That's a little tricky. We can talk about that more. What is physical theater? Where's the line between physical theater, and isn't all theater somehow physical? I tend to believe it is. But Lecoq definitely was a very central figure in the training of performers and performance makers. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, and his legacy has continued with a number of schools around the world, and now several graduate programs that offer advanced degrees focused on his approach, his training. We do, as I said before, offer a 10-day experience in London that is coordinated to be to take place at the same time as the London International Mime Festival, which is an international celebration of physical and visual theater from around the world. We are friends with the festival producers, so our students, when they travel, don't only get to see the shows, they also get a chance to sit with the artists, to talk to them about their process, to sit with the festival producers and talk to them about both the process of producing an international festival, but also the opportunities for them as performance makers to see their work developed, toured to international festivals. What does it take to create a piece of work, to see it through a series of iterations and processes that might allow it to eventually be seen at a place like the International Mime Festival? As I said, the EDPP, the MFA program, spends the first year in Chicago. We study performance in a variety of ways: improvisation, movement, voice, acrobatics, mask work, puppetry. The students are about to do a three-week workshop in puppetry. They are completing a devised project, which is being performed this weekend. It's being live streamed on YouTube. There are a number of opportunities to both engage in existing texts and also to reimagine them and to create your own work in that first year. We also offer opportunities to explore other media, voice work, on camera work, working in collaboration with musicians, dancers. Our MFA students have always found opportunities to reach across to other departments and form collaborative partnerships with students from those departments as they create their thesis projects. So, and we're very much encouraging of that. At the same time, excuse me just a moment. At the same time, we also insist that our students have a grounding in entrepreneurial thinking and business from the point of view of an artist. So we're not asking you, obviously, to become business people, but we are asking you to think of yourselves and your work from that point of view. So how do you market something? How do you fundraise? How do you imagine starting a company? What are the steps that you would need to take? Or if you already have that experience, how can you get some ideas about how to take a company to the next level in terms of partnerships, or the way that it's perceived in the world, or the way that opportunities can be created for the work to be seen by a wider audience, to receive different kinds of support. So really it's about that creative entrepreneurship that we're trying to encourage with those classes. And our business, the teachers who teach those in our business program are all artists, working artists themselves. So they really approach it from that point of view. We also make sure that our students are in contact with working artists in the Chicago community and the international community. So we always have guest artists. For instance, the person who's leading the project that goes up this weekend is an associate artistic director at the Steppenwolf Theater. We have had folks come in from Italy, from Sweden, international artists, that is, to work with our students. So we're really about exposing you to not only the way that people are working, but also to the artists themselves, who might be important relationships as your careers develop. And then, as I said, the second year's in Berlin at the Art House International School, which is an international center for devised performance. It is comprised of students from 24 to 30 different countries. So our students are mixed right in with those students from all over the world. All the classes are in English, and that's a great opportunity for the students after that foundational year here in Chicago to really mix it up with people with very, very different ideas of what theater is, what place it has in their cultures, how to go about creating it. So that's a very expansive, both in terms of imagination and cultural exposure. It's a very, very expansive year. And then just to complete that, the MA concludes that year at the end of that 1 year program, or 1.5, whatever it takes, with the completion of a thesis project as well that's performed here in Chicago. Yeah, go ahead, David.
No, just say the next couple slides are all about facilities. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you saw on the little map, there was a little red dot. If you were looking closely, it was number 9. I'm sure most of you didn't have a chance to look that closely. But we're on 11th Street, right there in that area that David was describing. We're just off of Michigan. So we are right in sort of in the heart of the city, and a couple blocks from the lake. So that is, we're in a beautiful location. There's a Grant Park is right across the street from us. And we get year round, we get opportunities to step outside our doors and see beautiful sunshine or amazing snow, depending on when it is, because it's Chicago. These are some photos of some of our facilities. The center photo is our newest facility. That is a state-of-the-art theater that was just opened last year, and I mean state-of-the-art with all of the bells and whistles, all the toys we might want to have as we're making theater. To the left is our state-of-the-art light lab, again just opened last year. So we had a complete renovation of our facilities over the last few years. The photo on the right is our new scene shop, which again, completely renovated, state of the art. So our facilities are very, very high level. They offer students amazing opportunities to explore both performance and to collaborate with our undergraduate technicians, designers, stage managers, even undergraduate directors who are always anxious to play with our MFA and MA students and to help create with them. The show that's going up this weekend has, I think, 10 undergraduate students in total working on it in one form or another, as technicians, as designers, as stage managers. So it's a great opportunity for us for them to get exposure to MAs and MFAs who are working at a very high level in their own craft, and for the work that our MAs and MFAs do to be fully supported by the department. We have over 800 undergraduate theater majors in our department, so there is always a plethora of people who want to play with our graduate students and make work with them.
Let's see. Is this the? Whoops, I backed up.
That's all right.
Well, this was, I think I was actually supposed to have the dance center on there too, and I didn't update that picture, so that's my bad. But again, this was just pointing out that there are other additional rehearsal spaces, including this main picture of 623 South Wabash. The dance center is another place where students have used as rehearsal spaces as well. And then the last one is the student center. The new student center also has meeting and rehearsal spaces that potentially students have used as well. Anything you want to add to the student center?
Yeah, our students are using it regularly right now as a rehearsal space, a meeting space. There are places to do, there's sound rooms in there where you can do voiceover recordings. There are music practice rooms. There are performance facilities in there. It's a really amazing new building. And as you can see from the photo, it is literally brand new. What did it open the end of last fall? Is that right, Derek?
Yeah, last fall was the first opening of it.
There's also a makers center in there, a fabrication center, which is all of the students have gone through their initiation process for that. You need to be trained in some of the facilities there, but it is open to all of our students, graduate and undergraduate, to use that. So it's a fantastic addition to the fabrication facilities that we have in the theater department.
And then here's some information, some facilities about your stay in Germany.
Amazing, beautiful, garden-like, as you can see. That's a look out the windows of the studios in Pankow, which is the neighborhood of Berlin where the studios are located. They're called the Eden Studios for a very good reason. It feels like you're walking into the Garden of Eden. You see a little photo there of Ariel teaching a class of some of our MFAs and other students in that international group. And then there's a lovely photo of Berlin from the Mitte, the central district, looking across the river. And here's a little sample two-year plan. So just to run quickly through that, in the fall, again, most of these are prescribed classes. I'll point out where the electives occur. But this is the MFA. This is the two-year program. In the fall, you would take acting and performance. That's a 4-credit class that looks at acting, as you can see from the title, looks at acting and performance from a number of different points of view, ranging from mask work to puppetry to psychological acting, character building. We look at texts as points of departure, and also what are the demands of the texts and the styles and the forms themselves. Movement for the performer takes in a number of different approaches to opening the body, opening the expressivity of the physical instrument. Vocal technique does the same thing. Constructing contemporary performance is our applied theoretical class. And I say applied, meaning, yes, you'll do a lot of reading and research, but all of that will lead right back into the making of work. John Green, who teaches that, is very much about research that leads to creative work itself. So it's not just a standalone theory class where you sit in a room and read and discuss. It really is all coming back into the studio. Our entire program is built around the idea that applied work and the maker's work is what we're all about. Personal creative process is a wonderful intermodal exploration of your own creative themes and opportunities to meet your own creative resistances by playing with painting, with writing, with sculpting, with movement, and not to master all of those forms, but to use them as opportunities, as I said, to uncover your own creative themes. And that very often leads to plants the seeds for the work that comes later on. The students love that work. Creative entrepreneurship is one of those business classes that I mentioned, and that is geared to you both as an individual artist and as a potential member of a company or a producer, director, creator of work. Spring builds on all of those classes. I won't repeat the content again, but you can see from the list that there is a sort of linear progression through the first year. And the spring is also capped with that last class, which is called the research project. That is one of the 2 fully produced shows that you do in the first year. That one's very much an original production. The students collaborate to create a piece of work that may use existing text, but isn't restricted by a piece of existing text. If anything, it uses text as a point of departure, and it is an original creation or set of creations, depending on which way the students want to go with that, that is performed, produced, supported by the department, and presented at the end of the spring semester. Year 2 continues the work, diving more fully into styles and forms. All of the most outstanding historical theoretical styles are investigated, not to try to reproduce them. So we don't want to do commedia again, but if you investigate commedia in certain ways, you can find tools for the modern theater maker, the modern performer and theater maker that are every bit as applicable to our work now as they were in the heyday of the Commedia dell'arte. So that's just one example of how we approach styles and forms. Advanced vocal and movement techniques is what it says. It's taking the work that's done, the foundation that's laid in movement and voice in the first year, the fall and spring of the first year, and applying it to more advanced techniques, composition techniques, techniques toward the making of work, and also deepening the performer's own individual expressivity and creativity. And then we also continue with a guided research thesis preparation class that is now a research class that is specific to the performance makers' interests as they prepare for making their thesis project at the end of that second year. So that will be research that is based on the creative interests and themes that each performer has expressed. Spring continues that work in Berlin. As I said, that term goes January to April. And then the summer, what we're calling the summer term, which actually begins at the end of April and continues through June, is 5 total credits. And that is the creation, the completion, and the presentation of the thesis projects that each MFA student is required to complete at the end of their program. Those are presented in Berlin as part of a festival by Art House. The MA follows a very similar path through the first year, with the exception that there is a required creative elective in the spring. Could also be taken in the fall. That's flexible. Otherwise, the classes mirror the classes of the first year of the MFA program. So that really is a preparation of the performer and the performance maker in that first year. The creative elective, some of our students have decided they wanted to dive more fully into multimedia work. So they've used that to take maybe a class in filmmaking or maybe a class in digital performance making. There are, because we have a number of graduate programs and of course, we have undergraduate programs in all the arts and media as well. There are a number of opportunities for students to use that creative elective to broaden their own approach to their work and their own performance making. And there's a little look at the faculty with some pictures of all of us. There's John Green sitting right there. John is the co-director of the program. And then there's some photos of Thomas Pratke, is the head of Art House, was formerly the pedagogical director at the Lecoq School in Paris. And then a couple of the other faculty. I think there are 8 to 9 faculty here in Columbia and roughly the same number in Berlin. So this is just a sample of people that we know that you will work regularly with. And we can certainly talk more about the faculty if anyone has questions about those, about them. And a fuller list of the faculty is available on our website.
John, while you're here, since you logged in right when we were introducing faculty, do you want to quickly say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm John Green. I'm the Associate Director of the program, and I teach the guided reading and theory. We've just finished a project on psychogeography, which took us to the Riverwalk. So I look forward to exploring devised performance with you all.
Thank you. And then John obviously will be on hand too when we get to the Q&A section. There's just a couple more slides and then we're going to let Abby and Brittany introduce themselves. But quickly, I want to talk a little bit about funding. So Obviously, funding this is an important part of everyone's decision-making process. Typically, there are a number of different ways to fund your education. Scholarships, Columbia has a variety of incoming student scholarships. There's a scholarship finder at colum.edu/scholarships. All of you who apply on or before the priority deadline, which is February 10th, we'll get to that in a second, are considered for incoming student scholarships. Those are merit-based scholarships that you don't have to do anything other than just apply to the program for consideration before February 10th. Those cover anywhere from 25% of your tuition, maybe upwards of 75%. And again, they're merit-based based on the overall strength of your application materials. There are additional scholarships that you can apply to later after your first semester, but those ones that I was mentioning, those 25%, 75%, et cetera ones, those are the main ones when it comes to incoming student scholarship. You can obviously work on campus too your first year. The department has assistantships. Those are positions that they give to the department, or where you would work with the department, and you would potentially get, or you would work with the department doing a job that's related to your field, and you're paid with a stipend. And an assistantship can only be assigned at admissions. You can't apply to get an assistantship, but you are considered for them the same way that you are considered for scholarships. All other campus jobs, though, you can apply to through our campus portal, which also includes working off campus. International students cannot work legally off campus, but only domestic students can. And then lastly, I just want to mention the FAFSA is important for loan consideration, and you want to know how much you have available to you in loans. So I always encourage students to submit their FAFSA at the same time that they're applying, because it is a separate process, but it takes roughly the same time of admissions. And let's talk a little bit about admissions then and the timelines. So the application requirements are all listed on our application requirements page, colum.edu/grad admissions. Quickly, it's an application fee, it's a resume, it's 2 letters of recommendations, it's transcripts from every university you've attended, it's a self-assessment essay, there is an audition or / interview, and then portfolios are optional. If you wanted to upload, pieces of you moving, you have that option to do that in the application, but the audition and interview is sort of the requirement part. And we'll talk a little bit more about those during the Q&A. John or Michael, is there anything you want to add about that right at the moment, or?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we do require an audition. We are flexible, especially in COVID times, about how we manage those. And part of that also will be an interview process. So I think, yeah, we can answer questions about that as we go. But that is considered part of the application. It's not that you consider you submit an application and then we contact you about it. We will contact you, but we won't even make any decisions about the application until we have conducted that audition interview.
And then international applicants might have additional requirements such as English proficiency or a transcript evaluation. One more slide to go before we get to questions. Till we get to Brittany and Abby. You go to apply.colum.edu/apply to begin or continue your application. The priority deadline that I mentioned is February 10th. We technically will be reviewing applications past February 10th, but you really will not be considered for scholarships in the same way that you are if you meet the deadline of February 10th. So at this early stage in the game, you should all be treating February 10th as your deadline. And then decisions are usually reached 6 to 8 weeks after the priority deadline. So usually that's around, the latter part of March, the beginning part of April. And then quickly, that's Michael and my email addresses. Most of you have them, but if not, that's a way to reach out to them. I'm gonna stop the recording, and then I'm gonna let Abby and Brittany introduce themselves.